Max. Namaste.
Namaste, Julia.
And hello, everyone who's watching Shanti Talks, another episode with my friend Max. And today we'll talk about a very important subject that I think everyone needs to know about at this time. Actually, Max, I'm very interested to talk to you specifically because you come from an economic background. And we will talk about what is going on right now, the whole financial reset that is happening on this planet. It's not just an idea. It's actually something that is taking place right now. So before we even get into this conversation, I wanted to mention these things. Guys, listen to this. Your whole life will probably depend on this and how you use this information, because the things we will discuss is not only what's going on and what's been going on for years. And some of us have been researching it deeper than others, but also how we can make our plans for the future, what we can do to prepare ourselves as these huge changes are happening on this planet right now as we speak. And Max, can you give us kind of an introduction, like what is NESARA, what is GESARA, what is going on, and in a way that people can understand who is hearing it for the first time, for example, because me myself, I learned about it in 2011. I haven't really been keeping up with all the details. I was kind of just waiting for everything to just unfold because I was really not the right person to participate actively in this kind of stuff. But you, coming from your economical background, you've done your research. You are the person to talk to, which is great. And maybe you can inform us a little more for those of us who still like, what is this thing? Please.
So GESARA, NESARA. Let's start with the name. GESARA is Global Economic Security and Reformation Act, and NESARA is National Economic Security and Reformation Act. So the NESARA is for the United States and I think also Canada, and GESARA is essentially the same thing but on a global scale. But because of the way the current system is set up, it's going to start in the US and then also in what's called the Commonwealth, so the British Empire that might not be as old as most of us think. So yeah, that's Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and possibly India, but I think India is doing their own thing today. So yeah, it will be different for India. And GESARA is basically a liberation of the financial economic global system, which today is somewhere between a casino and slavery. And do you think, should we pull up the actual list of all the points of GESARA and start going through them?
Yes, please. I think this is a great idea. Just share what you have.
All right.
It's the wisdom from this whole thing. We really don't know that much. So it's nice to just get some visual aid also.
Yes, it is. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Voila. So this is like an article that has some of the points of what GESARA is. And like it says, expect more. This is still in flux, in sort of being developed and being adjusted as we sort of go through this, because you have to take into account what happens in real time as this is being rolled out. So we can see that the first thing it says is restore constitutional law in Republic of United States of America. And without going too much into the whole legal thing of this, constitutional law is opposed, or as opposed to what we today use around the world, which is basically international shipping law. And there's this whole thing going on with our birth certificates and how we are considered these vessels or ships, and how we have this bond attached to our social security or national ID and so on. But I think we shouldn't go into too much of that, because this is more of an introduction, and this topic is really deep, and it goes back several years, and how does international business and trade work, and so on and so forth.
Actually, can we maybe post some links under the video, if you can recommend some documentaries and where we can, research a little bit deeper from the beginning of this stuff. Because my introduction was like the Zeitgeist movie back in 2007, so when it came out, and then other things that just kind of followed. So we can post maybe a few links where people can actually research the stuff if they're interested.
Most definitely. It's a very fascinating topic to sort of dive into, and it's also like the rest of it, sort of crazy, how it's actually set up, and how little we know about what's going on. Then the second point here is describing removing USA Incorporated administration. So America is actually a corporation, like most countries are, and the Congress and the Senate are more like executives than actual sort of elected officials. And I will post some information in the links on the video about what all this means, and how it actually it's put together. As point 3, when GESARA is put into action, all these companies are in a sense dissolved or put out of power. So the president, vice president, cabinet members, and Congress will have to leave office. And then there's going to be, within 120 days, new elections in all the countries that have signed up for this. And I think in particular in America or in the US, because they actually do have some kind of constitution left, they will have to sort of, in a sense, start from scratch. And I don't know what's going to happen in the European countries, for example, where all of this is sort of from in terms of history. But I suspect many countries will have to write new constitutions for their countries, much like Ireland has done. I think they're one of the few countries in Europe that actually has a constitution that is worth anything. Denmark, for example, where I'm from, our constitution is not really a constitution, and sort of our basic human rights is not really sort of secure. The royal family still sort of has power. If you read the Danish constitution, it says as the second paragraph that basically the king or the queen or the monarch has the sovereignty or the right to veto any law that the government wants to pass, which is sort of interesting. So constitution and democracy, what is really there now. So if you're from Europe and want to know what's going on there, I will also try to post some links on how this is actually working at the moment. If we go down sort of through the list, I think we're going to pick out some of the interesting ones. You can sort of read some of these yourselves. But here, for example, the military is going to sort of be under control again, and all these foreign wars that is mostly about resources will be stopped, and all the troops that have been posted around the world, whether it's from Europe or from the US or Canada, will be called home, unless the countries actually want them there, which is also very nice. So it's sort of like the beginning of the end of war. Mm. And then number 10 here is very interesting. Zeroing out credit card balances and bank debt relief worldwide. So basically, it is the removal of all debt on the planet, sort of in gradual phases. So all the mortgages, all the student loans, all the credit card debt, and all this stuff is slowly but surely gonna be removed, and it is actually being removed. And you can find sort of normal people with mortgages and loans and sort of going onto their internet bank, and suddenly it's just zero. And then if you contact the banks, they're not really gonna tell you anything.
They're not there.
Yeah, because I mean, what do you say to some people? Yeah, GESARA has been passed by law, so yeah. But I think maybe it's sort of better to have people ask questions than to try to force the truth on them.
Right.
And some of these institutions, they don't quite know what to do, because even though I would consider the battle, the war as won, there is still some fluctuation and some adjustments that have to be made along the way. Then the next point 11, is in regards to going back to a gold standard, which means that there will be no more endless money printing, and sort of inflation will also be sort of like a thing of the past. And then there is a new US dollar. It's called rainbow dollar, I think, or rainbow currency. And that's because of the colors on the actual notes. It's a rainbow, which is also sort of beautiful, I think. And you can Google this, and you'll be able to find a lot of artwork for this dollar.
Really?
I don't know if they've actually decided on one yet.
I haven't seen any yet. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm. It is. And then another big one: federal income taxes will be abolished. That means if you go and work, you will get all of the money. There will be 0% income tax, nothing. You are entitled to all the fruits of your labor. And then, as we can see in point number 14, there will be it's called flat rates non-essential new item sales tax for running the various governments. And that means that when someone produces a new good, a new thing that is not food, that is not medicine, and a few other things, there will be a basic non-fluctuating tax on these items. And it's probably going to be somewhere between 15 and 20%. Here they've written 17, but I've seen different numbers, different places. But I'm guessing less than 20% and more than 10. And like I said, this would be used to run the basic sort of infrastructure of the government, which will also be much, much, much smaller than it used to. Then there will be increased benefits to senior citizens. So they will basically be taken care of, because the senior citizens in our world today are treated quite horribly. Yeah, which I think is also very good news. And I think if you're over 60, you will get like a basic pension, so to speak. And yeah, you will like I said, be taken care of. And in regards to the whole abolishment of debt, if you're a normal being out there, I was about to say person, but we can get into do that to that also. A person comes from Greek persona, mask. You are not the person. You are the being.
Right.
And your mortgage will sort of be removed. Then you basically just get to own your house, have your house, live in your house, keep your house. In sort of like the first round of debt forgiveness. If you are using real estate as speculation and you have more than one mortgage in more than one house, your debt forgiveness will I think come later. This is about sort of liberating the regular people first, and then the people who actually have enough already, they can take care of themselves as this is being rolled out. Then comes some more about, as I mentioned, the days, new election kind of thing, where a new government will have to be formed, and I think the whole sort of voting machine will also be calibrated, adjusted, so it's sort of one vote for every human being on the planet, and all this like slavery business and whether you're a legal immigrant or not will sort of also be removed. So we will all have one vote in choosing our elected leaders. And I haven't voted for a number of years since 2008, 9, 10, and I am actually considering voting again if this is rolled out. Yeah, here comes the rainbow currency, which will be backed by precious metals. And there's also this whole story about how the military-industrial complex, the sort of like the top of the pyramid, has basically been robbing the third world of their gold reserves. So all of these gold reserves will be returned to the countries where they were stolen from.
Oh.
We're talking a lot of countries in South America and Africa primarily.
Yes.
The Middle East. Yeah. Which will then be used to back their currencies, essentially. And then another very interesting thing that is going to happen is that all the currencies are going to be equalized. So the exchange rates will go from the sort of this unevenness where you can exchange $1 to I don't know, maybe 10,000 bahts or rupees or however much it is in the various exchange rates. All of this will be equalized. So all the money will, in a sense, be worth the same.
Mm.
And in this whole reset, revaluation of the currencies, a lot of funds for humanitarian purposes are going to be released all around the world. So I know a lot of light workers, light warriors, people who are sort of in the know, who have bought some of these currencies, dong, the Vietnamese dong, the Zimbabwe dollar, and the Iraqi dinar. And the reason why is that they have a lot of zeros on them, these notes. So when you go into the bank and suddenly the exchange rate is 1-to-1, you're suddenly going to be able to put several millions into your account.
Oh, wow. Then some people will be billionaires in these Eastern countries.
Yes, exactly. Obviously, this is going to take some time, and it's going to, you have to sort of like roll this out slowly in order for the markets to stay relatively stable and not cause hyperinflation and panic and so on. So there are these foundations that are right now in possession of both the gold and all of this money that the top of the pyramid have stolen, essentially. And if you have a humanitarian project in mind, or you are doing a humanitarian project, something that is actually good for all of humanity, you will be able to exchange these currencies into to more valued money, and then use it to run your project. So if you have an organic farm, if you're doing a food program in Africa or something like this, then you will essentially be funded, so that these things can be rolled out. I read that GESARA, NESARA might be officially announced on Monday. I haven't really sort of fully fact-checked this, and again, I don't know if there is a set date, because you kind of have to go with the sort of like geopolitical climate in order to sort of do this without causing too much panic and turbulence in the market. But one of the sort of signs that this is actually being rolled out is this guy and this little clip that I'm going to play for you, and then we can talk about what's going on.
You know what? They're traveling in the United States, and they're also driving, and they're building the trailers. They're building a lot of things. They're driving. People are driving. They have to buy one of those things, drive around. They'll drive back to New York, their first lady. The trailer. What do they call that? RV. Well, you should know Indiana's the capital of RV. I think I'm going to buy an RV and travel for now on in an RV with our first lady.
So yeah, what is he talking about? Because obviously it sounds a little bit sort of crazy, weird, doesn't it?
Right.
But RV is an acronym or short for revaluation, which is basically what GESARA, NESARA is, or part of GESARA, NESARA. So this might be sort of hinting at this is coming. And if you are to do this, or when this happens, it will happen from or through New York, which is the sort of the financial capital of the United States. So that, to me at least, is an indication that this is definitely in the works and that it is coming. The exact dates, I don't know. Maybe it will be Monday. Maybe not. We will have to see. Like I said, none of all this is in the normal sense official or sort of fully planned in terms of what dates, what is to come. So we'll sort of have to just wait and see, cross our fingers that it'll be sooner rather than later. If it is not happening on Monday, it might give some of you guys watching this video to check out GESARA in more detail and see if you have the possibility to buy some of these currencies in case you have something positive to use it for. So if you want to buy a Ferrari and Gucci bags, then it's probably not for you. But if you want to buy lands and start a community and grow organic vegetables and farms, or do a yoga center or anything like that, this might be the opportunity for funding all of this, which is also very good news.
That's really good news, and that's what I've been hearing also. Even just the processes that's been going on, they are kind of pulling out all these corrupt individuals from all these nonprofit organizations, and they're shutting down, especially in India, it's been large scale. They're shutting down a lot of these corrupt organizations that are actually nonprofit, and they act like they're doing something for the community, but they are essentially money laundering organizations. And some of these ashrams, and I'm not going to give any names out there, but I've been paying attention to this for a while, for a few years, and it really is happening. It's happening. It's not so well known yet. It's not really, you won't see this news on the television, just like in the US. We're still being fed a lot of this fake news, which is really crazy. So Can you tell a little bit more about maybe what you know about how it's going to be implemented, and maybe about the current situation? How is like this whole quarantine? Is this actually on purpose? Is this helping the system, to get reset? Do you know about, what is actually going on behind the scenes a little bit?
Yeah. So before you can actually roll out GESARA, you have to clean up the corruption enough for this not to fail. And I think it is, at least to me, pretty obvious that this whole Corona thing was not as bad as we were told. And I think that what is often referred to as the white hats, which is like the good guys behind the scenes, they decided to let it happen because it would give them room to work and to do their thing. There have been massive arrests all around the world. You notice that a lot of both celebrities and royalties and also some politicians and CEOs, CFOs, high-ranking business personnel are sort of stepping down or missing or self-quarantine or sort of in a way disappeared from the scenes. And you can go to I think it's Department of Justice website. I might be mistaken on this one, but there are 160,000 subpoenas or sealed indictments in the US that right now are being handed out. And all of these people who have engaged in this sort of corruption and self-service and criminal activity, they're basically being given the choice whether to sort of will not announce to the world that you're like an asshole, but you have to step down, you have to cooperate, you have to tell us what you know, you have to sort of in a sense confess, and then when this all goes public, there will be trials. Or I think the other option is keep playing your game, and all of this will be done very publicly, and you're not going to like that. So I get the feeling and the information that a lot of these people who have engaged in corruption have taken these deals. One, because they know that the game is over, and two, I think many of them sort of have been pressured into this, both by the system itself and by the top of the pyramid. So you can't really play the game at the top level without being corrupt.
Right.
As sad as that is. So in a way, I think many of them are actually happy that this is happening, even though they might be facing some maybe jail time or whatever it may be. Some of them will definitely also be executed, and I think some of them actually have been already. Just in terms of some of the big names, I think the Pope is under house arrest. I think Queen Elizabeth has abdicated her throne and is under house arrest. I think Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, is under house arrest. You can find photos of him with an ankle bracelet. I think Clinton, definitely Hillary, maybe also Bill, house arrest. I saw a photo of Hillary Clinton with an ankle bracelet.
Yeah.
So again, all the information right now is sort of very confusing, and what to trust and what is actually happening and so on. It's a bit of a jungle, but I think this is at least what I see, which makes to me a lot of sense if GESARA is being rolled out and is being implemented.
Yes, and you have such a good way of explaining these things without going too deep for it, because really it's going to be very hard for some people to wrap their mind around it. I mean, I have no idea what I would even think of it if I just found it out now. You know, it first started coming to me through certain channels, and then I researched it, but it's been more than a decade that I know, and at least I know the basics, what's going on, without trying to get in too much details about it. Really, there was a big part where I had to focus on my personal growth and my, you know, healing before I even got into all the stuff again. It's kind of like waves, you know? So now it's coming back. Now I feel like I'm ready to get more information, to share more, and certainly to speak more with people like you who are more educated about it. And you've had that economic background, you've learned so much before you even knew about these things. It's not like you're, you know, you're just learning from the internet this stuff. You had already your studies done in economics, so you knew how the system works. So I want to also kind of maybe talk about a few maybe little things, not little, well, kind of mentioning a few things that would maybe make sense to people. Yeah, I mean, it's just so much. But I guess just as an example, you know, because still people are sitting there probably and just like, what are you even talking about? Like, that doesn't it sound real, you know? We've been living in this world for so long that there's nothing outside of it that just matches our understanding, you know, how things are, how, like, what is going on. But like, for example, if we talk about IRS or like the taxes, can you just explain a little bit why is why it's not even a real thing? What is that thing? What is that organization? Can you hear me? It's a little bit freezing here.
Yeah, I am also getting some instability.
Okay, I think now it's back.
I think maybe we're back.
Yeah. Did you hear?
No, I couldn't fully hear you. You mentioned IRS.
Yes. Can you explain like what is that and how does it work and why it's actually it's not necessarily, first of all, and then it's not even a government organization.
Agreed. um, so the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, is indeed a unconstitutional organization. It has actually never been signed into law. And if you are an American, paying income tax is actually, or not paying your income tax is actually not illegal. And you can also find people online who basically refuse to pay income tax. And then, of course, the IRS will come, like, rah, 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 you have to pay, etc. And then you basically just use the law to say, you have to prove that I have to pay income tax. So
Right.
flip the game around. And with the implementation of GESARA, the IRS will be abolished and or integrated into the Treasury, just like the Federal Reserve have been under the Trump administration, which is also another indication that GESARA, NESARA is on its way. So the whole money printing system is being dismantled. On a global level, I think as soon as all this stuff sort of gets under control or gets rolled out from the US, we're going to see all the tax institutions around the world be removed and integrated into the equivalent of the Treasury in the United States. So it's going to basically be brought under government control. Right now, like the Federal Reserve and all the national banks around the world are not really national banks. They are private institutions that loan money to the government with interest that we, the taxpayers, then pay to these private international banking companies, institutions. And all of this is going to be taken apart. and then the national banks will be nationalized, however funny that sounds,
Right.
along with the, like I said, the tax collecting agencies. They will also be put under government control. And then, like I mentioned earlier, in the document, there will be this flat rate, new goods only sale tax. So if you want to buy an old house, you don't pay taxes. If you want to buy a new helicopter, for example, you're going to pay tax on that helicopter. If you're buying food and medicine, there will be no taxes.
Okay.
When you go to work, there will be 0% tax on your paycheck. Nothing. You will get to keep all of it.
I mean, that's great news. And also another question, I guess, would be what do you think about the time frame? Do you have any idea like how long it will take, or what would be the first changes happening?
Well, when the corruption has been dealt with to a sufficient level, GESARA will be announced to the world.
Mm.
So even though it has sort of behind the scenes been implemented and some of it is happening already, there will need to be a global announcement of some kind. And when that happens, all of the election stuff that I got into earlier will start to happen. And exactly when this is going to be is I don't know. But I guess it will be before the election in November in the United States. And if you've sort of been following what's going on, it has often been said that Trump has a trump card that he's going to play before the election happens. And I think this might be it. And that the elections in November will actually never happen in the normal way that they otherwise would have, because this will be rolled out. And it is going to cause some chaos, some confusion, etc. There's also been sort of what I talk about this, like 3 days, 10 days of darkness, where all the mass communications will be switched off. The internet will be not working or very slow. You will only be able to access very few websites, which will basically be broadcasting the information about all this continuously for as long as it sort of takes. And then the whole process of the elections will begin, the dismantling of the governments as they currently look. All the people that have been working behind the scenes will sort of be stepping forward and sort of, yeah. And I think it really depends on how many people are awake. Because if you do this and people are still asleep and don't know that this is going on, then it's going to be causing more good damage than it's going to cause good. So when a certain percentage of the world's population is aware that this is going on, both the good and the bad, there will be enough of us to sort of tell everybody else, hey, relax, chill out. This is the good thing. Don't panic.
Right.
Take it easy.
Yeah. I'm also wondering the same thing, if people are ready for it on a large scale. I mean, it's easy for us to be excited. For the most part, I'm actually kind of, in a way, I'm looking at it in a pessimistic way almost, when I look at all the people and the way they're acting right now, with still being caught up in these dramas and not even paying attention to the real the real news and the real things that are happening, that we're being distracted from. And not so many people have an idea about any of this, any of these arrests, any of this behind the scenes kind of work. So I'm trying to encourage all of you guys who are watching, if you have friends and you're not sharing, you have to share more and in a way that they will understand. It doesn't have, you don't have to just go and hit them on the head with all this information, but just kind of putting out the little seeds of information. It's very important right now, and you already should have that intelligence in how you can do it, you know, because everyone is different the way they perceive the information. We cannot go and force feed them the stuff. They will be more likely to resist and to argue and to say, what are you talking about? Just dismiss the whole thing. But there are like little ways to do it, you know. We know our family, we know our friends, and how they will um, start to open their mind a little more. So I think that's very important right now. And anyone who's just been sitting there dormant, you know, it's time to activate. It's time to go out there and educate people. We have to reach this boiling point in a way where the majority is awake, at least awake enough to not resist what's happening, to not be in denial. And for that, we have to work. We're working 24/7. You know, people like us and in our community, it's 24/7 work. I'm even working in my dreams. I astral travel. I get, I don't know what I do exactly there, but people message me all the time that they see me in their dreams and we're doing stuff. You know, we have workshops going on and meetings, and there's so much going on than our eyes can see. And our like higher self, it works on so many levels. It's not just in this body, right? So it's like we're focused on this body right now, but also we're exist in so many different dimensions. So it's just like all interdimensional stuff. So that's interesting. And but I also feel, you know, with these energies that are kind of coming gradually to us and increasing, more people are waking up. So we're not necessarily doing all the work as people waking up each other. They're also kind of getting this help, right? So
Yeah.
can you comment on this? Like how, you know, from your experience, have you noticed the difference in just like in what's going on? Like I feel like right now humanity is actually much more ready to get the to understand this stuff and get the truth than even like a year ago.
Hmm. Yeah, like you touch upon the energies, and you can actually go look at this with a human frequency,
Human
human
resonance. Yeah.
resonance, where the vibration of our collective is rising. And I guess I kind of use the strategy that you were suggesting about planting seeds. So I don't try to sit down and sort of explain everything to everyone.
Right.
I just sort of, you know, casually drop, oh, I'm reading about GESARA, it's, you know, about all debt being forgiven and la la la, sort of quickly come with a point, and then sort of not really go into it anymore, and just have people sort of be like, what is that sounds really nice. I would like that. And then people don't believe it necessarily. But I think that if that seed has been planted, then when all of this actually, my computer is going completely crazy.
I can see you, no problem.
Maybe we're back.
Maybe
Okay.
you have too many tabs open.
Yes, or maybe just all the crystals are interfering. Or maybe it's the cabal not wanting us to talk about this.
Right. We're being sabotaged.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because then when this happens, it won't be quite as big of a shock. If you've sort of heard this maybe a little bit here, a little bit there, then it will be more like, oh, I know this, rather than
Right.
sort of this like, oh, what the fuck. So yeah, I think that's sort of like the strategy I employ.
Okay, then again, another question. I have 1,000 questions, but I'm trying to pick the good ones where we can kind of, focus on the things that are important and the questions that people might be asking as they're watching it. So it's like, what do I do now? Like, do I pull the money out of the bank? Do I invest it in something? Do I keep the cash? Do I buy the gold? Like, what do I do? What do we do? Any advice?
Well, I think the most important thing is to inform yourself. Go look at this. Make up your own mind. Do your own research. I would definitely say that buying precious metal is a good idea. I would also suggest looking into the whole cryptocurrency thing, because I think that's going to be playing a big part in all of this. If you do know about investments and do invest, then sort of digging through this information should not be too difficult. It's surprisingly sort of simple, really, the whole thing, compared to what we usually think of economics. And yeah, don't panic. All of this is for the better. So if you just do nothing, you're going to be fine also. If you do feel like playing with this, if this excites you, if you're like, oh, investment opportunity, then
Right.
go do some research and have fun with it. For me personally, I sat down yesterday and sort of started looking at the practical information about how to maybe do some investments and all this. And I could just feel that for me, it didn't really excite me. It's not really my passion, my joy. I love researching the stuff sort of from the bigger picture perspective and understanding what's going on. But actually playing with all of that, it's not really for me.
That's your job.
I would much rather go do gardening and walk barefoot in the forest.
Right. Same with me.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm an artist, so I've been kind of floating around life for a long time and just not really worrying about this financial. I don't have a bank account. I don't even have a credit card, just for years.
Excellent.
And I've been just kind of, not worrying about the stuff. It just comes to me as I keep my faith, doing the things that I love, sharing from the heart, and I get rewarded for it just in 1,000 different ways. So I think this NESARA GESARA thing, it's also very like a spiritual manifestation in a way. What we have already achieved collectively as a consciousness. I mean, this kind of things, they wouldn't just be happening if we weren't actually ready for it. And now it seems more realistic than ever because, and they try to stop this thing. How many years ago they tried to even roll out this thing and it just didn't work? Like they had these twin towers. Um, they had all kinds of events planned out specifically to stop this program from being rolled out. And I've listened to some videos, and all this information kind of makes sense. No, they didn't want us. They didn't want this prosperity to be available for all. They wanted to suppress it.
Yes, I think the first time was Kennedy, who tried to roll this out. What happened to him?
Right.
And then I think the story goes that the American Special Forces actually got into the White House, and then Bill Clinton at gunpoint signed GESARA or NESARA. And then I think it was supposed to be announced on September 11, 2001. And like I mentioned with the Trump video, if you are going to roll out NESARA GESARA, it would happen from New York. And and the buildings that got destroyed was all about getting rid of GESARA and NESARA. The plane or the missile or whatever happened in the Pentagon was, I think, about massive investigations into corruption and so on. So yeah, it got stopped.
It's
But
absolutely.
now we are here, and yeah, it's
And
happening.
I mean, and somebody will probably go, okay, I need to research this stuff. So, I mean, there is information out there, and like I said, we'll post as many video links and articles and things that are available that are credible, and I'm sure you can give me a lot of that we can share. Um, what about maybe a little more of the heads up, like what to expect, or the kind of maybe what about like the people who live in the cities? Do they need to worry about just trying to move out and going, to buy some land, or like you said, if you're not doing anything, it's also okay? Like any like general advice, a little more.
Yeah, yeah. I think, like you said, if if you don't really feel like doing anything and just watch this happen, then that's fine. And like I said, if you feel like playing with this, if it excites you, if you find it interesting, um, you can sort of play around with the whole Bitcoin, maybe investing in some of the currencies that I mentioned, and getting into that. And if you're just a normal guy or girl, then yeah,
Don't worry
don't
about it.
worry. Just celebrate and enjoy the news that very soon your paycheck is going to be all yours, and that the taxation is going to sort of be removed, and that we're going to have sound money rather than this insane debt-based currency stuff. And don't panic. Stay calm, stay peaceful, stay in love, and information and conversation and so on is important. And yes, share this with people that don't know, either now or when this starts to happen. Let people know that it's actually a good thing, and that there will of course be some turmoils in the markets, especially if you are an investment banker and sort of that kind of life, and if you are relatively rich, then your money might sort of become worth less in the short run, but in the long run, it's for the global good of humanity. And if you don't like that, then I don't really know what to what to do for you.
Right. No, you're totally right. And I also think it really is important to start finding our spiritual kind of way to live our life, and like reevaluate the things that we do, because so many people, they are losing their business, they're losing their job. It's okay. Like it means you're being pushed towards reevaluating what you are even doing with your life, because this life is not about just saving money. It's much more than that. It's about sharing and what you do with your resources. And it's okay to be wealthy, it's great, but I think it's also important to have that understanding. What are you doing all this for, and who you can help, and maybe rethink about the ways you're working, the ways you're doing business. And maybe some people will change their direction completely into something totally new that they never done before. And I'm doing a lot of the tarot readings lately, so people ask me for that, and I'm getting these tower cards, and I'm getting a lot of this kind of the falling of the structure, because a lot of people are really concerned about their finances right now. And instead of just telling them, don't worry about it, I kind of want to give more of the explanation why. But I think this video, it explains very deeply why we need to not be attached to our old ways and how we used to live, how we used to make money. Because this whole system of just going to work, coming home, and being a zombie, glued to your TV screen and then just go to sleep and then do it again, this whole system is breaking down right now. People are starting to question the way that they live, the way that they, how healthy they even are, what they eat, what they put in their body and their mind, what they feed their children. All of these things, they tie in together completely. I also think that the whole educational system is about to change. And it's a process, it's not like going to happen just overnight. We are here to create this. And it's like some people ask me, when is this ascension going to happen already? Like, when is this new earth? Am I going to make it? It's like, we're not making it somewhere. We're not waiting for the train. We're here to do things together to make these changes. It's not something that is just going to come and pick you up. Okay, let's go. You're getting to 5D. And we're still going to talk about this 5D in another video and what it all means, this whole transition to this new state of consciousness. It ties into everything. And like I said, this whole financial reset is a part of our collective consciousness evolution. It's the next stage. Whether people are ready for it or not, it's kind of like, we're gonna see. We're just gonna have to see. And as long as it will take, it will just be perfect timing, as it always is. It couldn't have been done earlier because I guess we weren't ready. Everything happens in the perfect timing. The timing is not even up to us. It's really up to the universe, and everything just has to come together. And also everybody will experience it in their own individual way. I think, it's not, we can't compare our path with others. And even this whole financial changes, it can be very chaotic for somebody. They could feel like they're losing, the whole earth is crumbling under their feet. But in the end, we have to see the higher picture. So I'm very grateful for the way you were able to explain these things in such a understandable, easy way, because really there's so much to it. There's so much to study, to learn. I mean, look into the history, look into and look at the links that we will share. We'll read some articles and educate yourself. Share with your friends, even parents. I think many people will be more ready to receive this information now. And also, Max, can you maybe read one of your poems for the final, few minutes of this video, so we can finish on a good note, on a positive note? That would be wonderful.
I would love to. I would love to. What will you do when you remember that you are God? When the abyss stares back and you are faced with a great void? When you are consumed and liberated by nothing? When the search for who you are has yielded no fruits? When empty is the only choice? What to do when your consciousness has become a filter so fine, every vibration, however minute, minuscule, and microscopic, is like a thunderous eruption of sensation. When you are given the reins of your experience, when you realize you are all powerful and all knowing, will you dare to shine like the power of a million suns are in your hearts? Will you let go of all resistance and live completely in the here and now? Will you relinquish all hope for a future? Will you surrender all memory of the past? Will you have the audacity to define your present not by your memory of the past, but by your vision of the future? Will you stubbornly refuse to see but one outcome of every single action you take? Will you undoubtedly insist on knowing the deed is done before you begin? Will you have the courage to create yourself anew in every moment? Can you face death with a heart filled to the brim with compassion? Is your trust so complete that you know you are going home?
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for this wonderful talk. You guys stay tuned. We'll see you soon on another episode of Shanti Talks. And thank you, Max. Have a great day.
Thank you
See you
for doing
soon.
this. It's wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.